Life is seldom easy. Typically, it is hard by nature, and it tends not to care. It's only through embracing the challenges of life that we harden up, toughening our skin, and resolve that things in life appear to get easier. And the more challenging the obstacles we face, the tougher we become as individuals, allowing us to take on even greater challenges without breaking. Like life, this also holds true for gaming. So with that said, are you tough enough to take on the challenges that life is based upon? Greetings and welcome to Checkpoint Gaming, Mancala. With this episode, we'll be going over Bao. With Bao, which is also known as Bawo, it is played in East Africa with the word Bao, possessing different meanings depending upon what language is using it, at least from what we can tell from our research. It is also considered to be the most complicated version of Mancala due to the number of rules that are connected with it, causing it to be known as the king of the Mancala family. In our research, we saw that debate exists if Bao consists of never-ending moves or not. With that said, we'll include the rules for never-ending moves within this episode, and it is worth noting that the means by which the game is played will vary between different playgroups, so embracing the principle of adaptability is important. Since this game is complicated, it may take some time to learn. So if you're truly interested in learning, then exercise the virtue of patience, which is opposite of the sin of wrath. Although as gamers, we understand how easy it can be to give in to wrath, especially when the game isn't going our way. This is especially true when the computer is clearly cheating. With the board, it consists of a 4x8 pattern, and it possesses 32 pits, which are also known as hollows. With a single pit, it is known as shimo, while the plural form is known as mashimo. Some boards also possess a large pit on either end of the board for purposes of holding the captured pieces and are known as the stores. With the pieces, they are known as seeds or keet, and they're to be placed and transferred across the board during play. The seeds should be relatively similar in nature, and the game comes with a total of 64 of them. With the 2 rows that are found nearest to each player, they belong to said player, along with all pieces found within them. In regards to the outer row, which is closest to the given player, it is referred to as the back row, while the inner row is referred to as the front row. So basically, the row found directly in front of the player is the back row, while the next row is the front row. Except for the houses, the pits are round in shape. Regarding the houses, they're square in shape. There's only 2 of them found upon the board. One is found on each player's side of the board. It is the 4th pit in the front row as measured from the right-hand side of the board from the player's perspective, and they serve a special role within the game which we'll talk about later. With the game's objective, it is to empty out the opponent's front row, or to prevent the opposing player from performing any legal moves. The player also does this while protecting their own front row. When it comes to that of movement, it sees the turns alternating between the players. With sowing, it will only take place in the player's own rows and in a circular manner, with the direction of sowing not being fixed. At the start of their move, the player is able to select a direction of sowing in some cases. During movement, the direction of sowing is able to turn after capturing, which is regulated by deterministic rules. And since sowing is deterministic, the positions that occur between that of 2 subsequent occurrences of a given position, then they are always the same. Once a direction of sowing has been determined, either clockwise or counterclockwise, the sequence of sowing is not to change. With sowing, only a single seed is to be added into each pit that is visited. And when the sowing process reaches the end of a row and the player still has seeds that need sowing, then the sowing process is to continue in the other row in accordance with the direction the player decided to sow in. With sowing, the player is to select one of their pits that is in possession of seeds, pick up all of the seeds found within it, and sow in the desired direction, placing 1 seed at a time into each pit until they have sown all of the seeds found in their hand. And with a long enough sequence, it will see the player reach the pit that saw the sequence began at. If the last sowing isn't completed, the sowing process is to continue in the same direction. Otherwise, the move is to come to an end, given the fact that the pit was left empty at the beginning of the sowing process. So, basically speaking, the sowing process will continue as long as the final pit a seed is sown in possesses a seed within it, regardless of if the player engages in capturing or not. But if the final pit is empty and a seed is sown into it, then the player's turn is to come to an end. It is also possible for the same pit to be visited multiple times during a sequence of sowings, which we'll touch upon later in this episode. With capturing, it is classified as either a capture position or a non-capture position, and it occurs when the last seed a player sows lands in one of their pits found in their front row that is already in possession of seeds. and this pit is found across from an opponent's pit that is in possession of seeds and is located within the opponent's front row. This will cause the opponent's pit to be emptied of its seeds, with these seeds being placed into one of the two outermost pits of the capturing player's front row pit along the prescribed direction in the capturing player's front row. And with that said, capturing is mandatory. Once done claiming the opponent's seeds, the capturing player is to engage in sowing once again, starting off with the pit that saw the placement of the opponent's seeds and continuing in the direction of play the player selected at the beginning of their turn. When doing this, said player is able to once again engage in capturing using the rules that have just been described. This process is able to continue, allowing said player to engage in multiple capturing and sowing cycles on their turn. It is worth noting that this capturing process can't exceed that of 8 times during a player's turn, due to the fact that the opposing player's front row is only 8 pits long, and the player is only able to capture from their opponent's front row, thus capturing from any of these pits only once on any given turn. But whenever an opponent's pit is empty within their given front row, then the player is unable to engage in capturing. The sowing sequence also visits a pit when it's empty, or the opponent's opposing pit is captured. It is worth noting that if the player isn't able to engage in capturing during their initial sowing, then they're unable to engage in capturing during their given turn. So if the pit found in the opponent's front row doesn't possess any seeds, but the player is able to continue engaging in sowing, then they're to continue the sowing process until they can no longer engage in sowing. And if they're able to engage in capturing at a later point during their turn, they'll be unable to engage in capturing. Sorry, Charlie. With Bao, it is divided into a beginner's version and an advanced version. We'll be starting off with the beginner's version before moving on to the advanced version. With the beginner's version, it is traditionally known as the women's and children's version, while the advanced version is traditionally known as the men's version. Yes, we're aware of the fact that this isn't politically correct, and simply touching upon it will upset a fair number of people, but it is important to not only recognize past events, but talk about them, even if it makes us uncomfortable. This is because doing so will allow us to not only know how far we advance as a society, but to also not repeat past mistakes. Otherwise, atrocities such as what was seen with Unit 731 will most likely occur again within our future, unless you believe the spirit of Dred Scott should be allowed to persist. With the beginner's version, 2 seeds are placed into each pit during setup. If the board possesses a store, then ignore it. When it comes to moving, the player is to take all of the seeds found within a pit and sow them in a single direction, sowing one in each hole and starting off with the nearest pit. When a player ends up with one of their pits found in their back row, or they are unable to engage in capturing, and there is at least 1 seed found in said pit before the player sows their last seed there, then they're to take all of the seeds out of said pit and sow them, starting off with the next pit found in the initial direction. If the player moves and they reach the 8th pit found in front of them when traveling in any direction and they can't engage in capturing, then they will continue with the next pit found in their back row. And if the last seed that is played ends up in their home pit, then the player is able to play again. After the player engages in capturing, they will always start sowing the captured seeds within their front row's first pit. With this sowing process, if moving counterclockwise, the player will sow the first seed within the very right front row pit, followed by sowing the seeds in a counterclockwise direction. But if moving in a clockwise direction, this process is reversed, sowing the first seed in the very left front row pit before sowing clockwise. If the player captures the 7th or 8th pit in the direction of movement, which represent the 2nd and 1st pits respectively upon the opponent's first row, it is from where the player starts sowing the seeds within the first front row pit of the new direction they're moving in, which is the former 8th pit. When the player empties the front row of their opponent, or they claim the majority of their seeds so that there is only a single seed found in any of their pits, which prevents their opponent from engaging in any more movement, the player wins the game. With the advanced version, place the seeds into the pits as follows: 8 seeds into each house and 2 seeds into each of the 2 pits immediately found to the house's right. Each player is to also receive 20 additional seeds that are to be placed off to one side during setup. If the board possesses a store, then these additional seeds are to be placed in there. The advanced version also consists of the Namua, or first stage, and the Mtaji, or second stage. With the Namua, it sees one seed from the store enter the game at the start of every move, which is to occur 20 times for both players. But if the number of seeds found in the store varies based upon player variation, then this process will change based upon the number of seeds found in the stores. From there, each player will start their round by placing one of their extra seeds into one of their pits that is already in possession of a seed with sowing starting from this given pit. On the first round of the game, and only on the first round, the starting player can take one additional seed along with the 4 seeds found next to the house and place these seeds anywhere upon their given side of the board. With the second player, they can do the same action, defend their house right away if it is under attack by placing their extra seed into their given house and capture right away, or to engage in any other standard movement. At the beginning of a move, the player can put the extra seed into one of the pits in order to move or capture. From there, the player is able to choose a direction which is to be set for the rest of the round. After a player engages in capturing, they are to sow the seed along the front row, starting with either the pit found to the starting pit's immediate left or right. If just sowing, the player is to sow the seeds starting with the pit found to either side of the initial pit. With capturing, it can only be done with the extra seed that is put into play. The player will also always have to put their extra seed into a pit that is already in possession of a seed. If there's at least one seed found in the opponent's pit found next to it, then the player can capture said seeds followed by sowing. But if they're not able to capture, then they're to only engage in sowing. And during the Namua stage, the game will end if the player moves and there are no seeds remaining within their front row. But if there are no seeds found in the opponent's pit when placing the additional seed, then the player is able to sow their seeds in any desired direction. If the player doesn't have any seeds found within any pits of their front row except for their house and they can't capture, then they are to take one of their extra seeds and one seed from their house and sow them into the 2 pits found next to the house, regardless of direction. But if the player only has 8 seeds within their house, then they are to take these 8 seeds plus the extra seed and sow them in any direction into the next pit found along the front row. With sowing from the house, the player is able to move, assuming that they have already captured during that round. But if the player has only sown and they end up placing their last seed at their house, then their turn comes to an end. And when the last extra seed has been played, the rules that are to be implemented are the same as the beginner version with a house, if it hasn't already been captured or sown, reverting to that of a normal pit. If one of the front rows is cleared before the last extra seed has been played, then the game will end. Similar to that of the beginner version, when the player ends up in one of their pits that doesn't possess any seeds in it when the last seed is sown, then their move comes to an end. When the player is traveling in a given direction, they will always sow their seeds in the selected direction until they reach the 7th or 8th pit found in their front row. If the player ends up in one of these given pits, they are able to change directions, thus starting over upon the front row of the same side these pits are found upon. Once all of the extra seeds have been put into play, then the Imtaji stage begins. The moves will now start by sowing the contents of a given pit from either the front or back row, with the chosen pit having more than a single seed found in it. During this stage, the game will end if a player's front row is emptied, or if the player only possesses a single seed within any of their pits found within both rows. In this latter case, no legal moves can be made. When it comes to draws within Bao, they're unable to occur. And regarding the Inchua version of the game, during setup, one seed is to be put into each pit along the player's front row. With the rest of the rules, they're just like that of the advanced version of the game, but without the house. So with that said, that is what you need to know about how to go about playing Bao. With that taken care of, we can start talking about how to go about playing Galata. If you liked this episode, feel free to give it a like. And if you want to stay up to date on any future episodes we upload, go ahead and subscribe. You can also support us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/checkpointgaming. See you in the next episode and happy gaming.